Welcome to today's Boss Economics World. Today, we're diving headfirst into one of the spiciest and most controversial economic issues dominating the headlines recently, Elon Musk versus the Federal Reserve. That's right, the tech billionaire, who's set to take the reins of the new Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, alongside Vivek Ramaswamy, has locked his sights on what he calls an absurdly overstaffed Federal Reserve. What does all of this mean for the economy? How does this criticism reflect the deeper structural issues in U.S. governance and global financial turmoil? Buckle up, because by the end of today's analysis, you'll not only understand the economic stakes but also why Musk's remarks have ignited such a firestorm. Let's peel back the layers. Here's the deal, Elon Musk has no qualms about calling it as he sees it. So, when he tweets out a scathing remark about the Federal Reserve being absurdly overstaffed, you know people are going to listen. This is a guy who's taken on entrenched industries and emerged victorious. He disrupted automotive with Tesla, aerospace with SpaceX, and now, he wants to tackle bloated government agencies. The question is, how accurate, or feasible, is this view that the Fed is overstaffed? Is his criticism warranted? The Federal Reserve employs approximately 24,000 people across the U.S. Now, sure, that number might sound large on paper, but compared to global counterparts like the Eurosystem which comprises about 35,000 employees just across Germany, France, and Italy's central banks alone, the Fed's workforce isn't as bloated as Musk's criticism suggests. Nonetheless, the critique signals a broader issue, government bloat. Here's a pattern we've seen before, a populist push for downsizing the government with promises of reducing waste and enhancing efficiency. Musk's comments are part of this larger narrative that's been brewing for decades, amplified to new heights by Trump's "drain the swamp" rhetoric. DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, is expected to bring $2 trillion in spending cuts by slashing redundancies across federal agencies. The idea sounds compelling, but anyone who's paid attention to U.S. governance knows you cannot solve complex bureaucratic inefficiencies with a meat cleaver approach. No government, especially in a massive economy like the U.S., can be neatly compared to a tech startup. Sure, Elon can call out the inefficiencies he sees, and undoubtedly, there are many, but applying tech business-style governance to agencies as foundational as the Federal Reserve could result in drastic consequences. One unintended side effect: increased systemic risk. Let's shift gears and talk about the Federal Reserve itself. The Fed isn't just any ordinary institution, it's the U.S.'s central bank, tasked with maintaining stability and steering the economy through turbulent waters via monetary policy. Unlike other arms of the government, the Fed is self-funded, with revenues primarily sourced from interest on government securities acquired during open market operations. Until a few years ago, the Fed was a source of revenue for the government, with $100 billion in surplus earnings being sent to the Treasury annually. These figures shrank in 2022, largely due to the Fed's aggressive interest rate hikes, but it's important to recognize that the institution literally funds itself. Now, let's be real, managing the largest economy in the world isn't a task to undertake lightly, and Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell has been under ample scrutiny. Of course, it didn't help when President-elect Donald Trump recently poked fun at Powell's position, calling it the greatest job in government and joking that Powell simply shows up once a month to flip a coin. We get it. Humor and populist ridicule go hand in politics, but let's not forget who's at the helm when the economy hits severe turbulence. Like an airline captain, Powell has been navigating one economic crisis after another. Musk and Trump's comments together promote this oversimplification of financial oversight. Yet, anyone who's tracked the Fed's job over the past few years, particularly post-pandemic, knows it's been walking a tightrope. On one side, you've got rising inflation pushing the Fed to raise rates quickly. We saw the most aggressive set of interest rate hikes in 40 years throughout 2022. On the other side, you have financial stability risks, unemployment pressures, and a ballooning national debt. Breaking down the key issue, critics like Musk and Trump might scoff at the Fed's decision-making, but when you're managing a $25 trillion economy threatened by runaway inflation post-COVID, decisions aren't exactly made with a coin toss. Data shows that, as of December 2023, inflation was starting to cool, but that's come at the cost of immense pressure on housing markets and commercial borrowers reeling under higher rates. Turning our focus to the numbers, does the Federal Reserve's headcount really indicate inefficiency? Musk's assertion makes it seem as though the organization is packed to the gills with unnecessary roles, but let's take a moment to compare and contrast. 1. The Eurosystem, comprising the European Central Bank and 20 national central banks, employs about 35,000 people. 2. Central banks in China and Japan, which manage economies smaller than the U.S., have larger bureaucracies relative to their GDP output. 3. The degree to which central banks are overstaffed is hard to quantify because most operate in regulatory and research-intensive environments that require manpower to ensure stability. Here's the kicker, central banks, including the Fed, shoulder an immense regulatory burden, including managing the flow and growth of the entire banking system, ensuring liquidity, and maintaining financial stability. It's not as simple as laying off a few thousand workers to reach an elusive equilibrium. Now comes the delicate interplay between Musk, Trump, and the core workings of U.S. monetary policy. Trump's previous encounters with the Fed have always highlighted his tendency to demand more control over the institution. In his first administration, he repeatedly criticized Powell for not lowering interest rates aggressively enough. It's a dangerous precedent when political actors strive for manipulation of central bank decisions. Just look at Turkey, where the central bank, under political pressure, slashed rates disastrously amid skyrocketing inflation, further weakening the lira and crushing consumer purchasing power. The independence of the Federal Reserve is a pillar of responsible economic management, reflecting lessons learned from centuries of, ready for it, governments crashing economies by toying with monetary policy for short-term political gain. Trump's desire to have sway over Fed policy signals a slippery slope towards economic mismanagement, and Musk chiming in about overstaffing gives credence to a misguided narrative. It's easy to read Musk's rant as just another barb thrown at the government, but consider the bigger stakes, the battle over central bank independence. By chipping away at confidence in the Fed's operations, it feeds a new form of populist criticism that's more dangerous than it seems. The Fed's job centers on striking the balance between controlling inflation and supporting employment, two goals that are often at odds. Understanding this dual mandate reveals why slashing staff or politicking around the Fed is far more complicated and perilous than the Musk-Trump rhetoric admits. Inflation is now easing after hitting a 40-year peak, showing that, while central bankers are far from flawless, their painstaking, data-driven approach can keep the economy from spiraling. Moreover, firing thousands of employees and scaling the institution back would likely destabilize essential operations overnight, potentially contributing to slower economic data processing or riskier financial climates. Central banks may appear calm on the surface, but much like a swan gliding seemingly effortlessly, there's a lot of paddling going on beneath the waves. Musk's remarks also warrant international consideration. If his and Trump's sentiments start influencing policy, global investors might think twice about maintaining confidence in U.S. markets. Historically, the Federal Reserve has held a unique position as not just a steward of the U.S. economy, but also as the de facto central banker of the world through the dollar's dominance. Undermining the Fed's perceived competence could spiral into capital flight, reduced confidence in dollar-denominated assets, and even tip over potential currency wars. What about Europe? Is Christine Lagarde phased? The ECB president responded with a swipe of her own, standing by the proficiency of her teams. She won't be the first or last official to defend the legitimacy and hard labor ethos of modern central bankers. After all, we've learned the hard way what inflation without controls can do to economies, just ask Argentina or Lebanon. In conclusion, Elon Musk's Twitter jab feels like just another whimsical take from the tech mogul, but it's symbolic of a broader ideological rift in global politics that favors simplifying complex issues for digestible populist sound bites. Critiques about government efficiency resonate with massive chunks of the public, which feeds a new cycle where financial oversight, crucial in steering us clear of crises, is painted as an overly bureaucratic, overstaffed machine. For finance professionals and concerned citizens alike, the stakes in these exchanges between Musk, Trump, the Federal Reserve, and the global central banking elites aren't just theoretical. These jabs reverberate through the markets, shaping public opinion, policy, and, eventually, livelihoods. So, will downsizing the government solve the economic problems of today? Or will it strip away the thin layers of protection that prevent financial meltdowns? Unlike coin flipping, this question demands a world-class economic calculus. You be the judge. That's it for today's Boss Economics World. If you enjoyed this spicy dive into central banking, populism, and global finance, make sure to hit subscribe and stay tuned, because next time, we're unpacking the broader China-US economic tensions and whether they're about to hit a boiling point. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.